Chairman Ham Soon-pyo of Chile Group. His real name is Suk-hoon Ham, who received a call from Nam Choi. Since there is an investment intention, I think it would be good to meet once. Are you sure about 5 billion? Yes. I checked it myself. They say that they will invest only 5 billion won out of 10 billion won, but I think more is possible if we talk well. I thought it was a bit strange that a young man in his 20s would invest a huge amount of 5 billion won, but he was able to understand the story that he made money with coins. Ham Suk-hoon laughed inwardly. All those who made money with coins are the same. In fact, among those who invest hundreds of millions of dollars, there were many coin geeks who made money with cryptocurrency. It's like gambling or investing. If you are lucky enough to earn money, you have to get up and rob it, but you can't give up your regrets and snoop around the board. Then you end up throwing it all away and regretting it. Ham Suk-hoon finished his thoughts and said, "Good. See you once." Ham Suk-hoon boarded the S-Class Maybach and headed to the hotel in Cheongdam-dong. He didn't have money until last year, so he had to walk around in a Jimjilbang and inn. However, he now lives in a penthouse overlooking the Han River in a luxury foreign car. All because this project was successful. No matter how much money he spent, instead of decreasing, his balance kept growing. It's all thanks to my good eye for people. The key to this job is to raise money for investment. While he was looking for the right person, he met Nam Choi by chance. In conclusion, it was great luck. He entrusted the JG blockchain to Nam Choi. Whether he had the talent for this job, he quickly learned how to give lectures and showmanship. The most important thing is that he is a relative of Jin-Hoo Kong. Investors lined up just to name Kong Jin-Hoo. So this guy must have been caught. By the way, the lottery and coin exploded one after another. Are you very lucky? It's a bit dubious that such luck happened twice, but when I met him, his doubts melted away. In front of him stood a young man in a baseball cap and glasses. A slightly chubby physique, wore jeans and a hoodie. Ham Suk-hoon had good eyesight like a con artist. There was nothing special about the young man in front of him in his eyes. If this guy made a lot of money, it's probably just because he was lucky. Now it seems that luck is over. He held out his hand with a friendly smile, hiding his heart. Nice to meet you. I am Sun-pyo Ham, chairman of Chile Group. Taeyong held his hand. Yes. Good morning. Nice to meet you. This is Taekyo. I heard a lot. Ham Suk-hoon, Choi Nam-woo and Taekyu sat in the hotel coffee shop and talked. Taekyu asked this as if he was curious, and Ham Suk-hoon answered without hesitation. How did you come to plan this project and what happened during the implementation process? The names of various politicians and celebrities were listed, and when he spoke with a Venezuelan government official about the purchase of a state-owned oil field, he showed a photo taken at the signing of the MOU and an article from a local newspaper. Ham Suk-hoon thought that fraud was not a simple crime, but a comprehensive art. The point of fraud is not to show you what you want to show, but to show the other person what you want to believe. So, Chile Group really established a corporation in Venezuela and signed contracts with mining companies. He also bribed Venezuelan government officials, obtained plausible documents and signed an MOU. To the extent that even the people I work with believe it to be true. If you do business around the world, you will naturally learn several languages. Dedicar más tiempo lo que hace realmente feliz. What do you mean? Focus on what makes you really happy. This is my favorite Spanish proverb. Taekyu genuinely admired it. Hey, not all scammers are doing it. At this point, maybe you believe it's real? What makes the president happy? I feel happy when I share happiness with others. That is why I am doing this. Oh, I see. Taekyu nodded hard and thought. This year is a year of abundance. Choi Nam-woo said. As you may know, when you say you invested in Bitcoin, after the initial issuance of cryptocurrencies, the issuance volume decreases sharply. The pre-sale is almost over, so we plan to raise the coin selling price soon. Taekyu showed an impatient expression. Then we should invest quickly before it is too late. We signed the contract right after the lecture. After a while, a lecture for VIP members will be held in the hotel hall. Choi Nam-woo got up from his seat. Then shall we go alone first? Could one more person attend? I have a close hyung who made a lot of money with coins, and after meeting and hearing the words of the chairman like this, I was convinced that I would like to introduce him to you. Hogu comes with money, so there is no reason to stop. Ham Suk-hoon smiled. Of course. Nice to meet you today. Taeyong nodded his head. Yes. I'll ask you to come here later. A lecture of JG blockchain was held at the Avalon Hotel Hall in Cheongdam. This lecture was for so-called VIP members, who gathered only those who purchased more than 50 million won of Gile Gold coin. This is to induce additional investment or to attract acquaintances. A hotel buffet was prepared at the back of the hall, and people freely spread their food on plates and conversed. The topic was, of course, about Gile Gold coin. Everyone was excited about the prospect of making a lot of money. Although Min Ha-young lacks the purchase amount, she was able to sit with Taekyu as an upline person. Are you really trying to invest 5 billion won? She said to Taekyu as if anxious. Would you like to go out and get some air? No. I feel comfortable here. Aren't you a little frustrated? No. I'm fine. Let's talk for a moment. This meat is delicious. I need to bring some more. Although he noticed several times, Taekyu was busy eating the buffet. When the meal was finished, Choi Namwoo stood on the podium and the people applauded. Nice to meet you. This is Namwoo Choi, the CEO of JG Blockchain. He lectured with enthusiasm as usual. On the screen, the listing plan for Gile Gold coin and the video of mining oil fields in Venezuela appeared one after the other. As you can see, just drill a hole and the oil will pour out. This crude oil, which will be sold worldwide, can only be purchased with Gile Gold coin. There's a lot of buzz in the media about rising oil prices these days, but you don't have to worry at all. This is because you can buy this crude oil at any time with the Gile Gold coin you have. When the oil price rises, the value of Gile Gold coin also rises, so shouldn't we be happy with the oil price? Members burst into laughter and Taekyu enthusiastically applauded and cheered. Ham Suk-hoon looked at him and asked, "When are you coming?" Taekyu said as he picked up the bread and ate it. "Now is the time to come." "I'm here." A young man in a suit entered the hall. "Well, that person." He jumped onto the podium before the host could even stop him. Then he lowered his head and said, "Hello. I am Ban Ju-won, the representative of Bansum, a cryptocurrency exchange. I came here because there was a briefing session about the popular Gile Gold coin. Ban Ju-won is a successful businessman and has appeared in many articles, and has interviewed the media several times during the cryptocurrency craze." Those who recognized his face muttered in unison. "You really are the boss of Bansum." It really is. Are you here for the listing of Gile Gold coin?" "Wow." Clap clap. The audience, who thought it was a surprise event, cheered and applauded all at once, and the hosts who were trying to bring them down stopped. Ban Ju-won said to Choi Namwoo, "Wait, can I borrow your microphone?" Choi Namwoo was embarrassed but suddenly handed the microphone. Then the accompaniment took the microphone and spoke to the people in the hall. "It is very nice to meet the members of JG Blockchain today. I heard that all of you gathered here have invested huge amounts of money in Gile Gold coin. I am also very interested in Gile Gold coin. There is only one catch." Everyone held their breath, concentrating on his words. "Damn it. What the hell is this?" Ham Suk-hoon quickly got up from his seat and was about to leave the hall, but Taekyu, who was beside him, grabbed his hand. "Where are you going, Chairman? You have to listen to the end." "What? By the way, did this guy call Bansum CEO here? What is it?" The banquet went on to say. "That is, JG Blockchain has nothing to do with CEO Kong Jin-hoo or with Bansum. Of course, I know that JG Blockchain CEO Namwoo Choi has been giving lectures as if Gile Gold coin will be listed on Bansum at any moment, emphasizing that he is a relative of CEO Kong Jin-hoo. However, to be clear at this point, JG Blockchain has nothing to do with CEO Kong Jin-hoo, nor with Bansum. Also, when blockchain experts checked the Gile Gold coin, the source code was found to be a so-called scam coin that copied Loida. As a cryptocurrency, it will never be listed on Bansum as it is garbage that has no value of even 1 won. For a moment, the hall was as quiet as a dead mouse. No one was able to open their mouths in shock. People gathered here invested from 50 million won to hundreds of millions of won to buy Gile Gold coin. But is that coin worthless garbage? If anyone else had said it, I would never have believed it. However, the person who made this statement is none other than the representative of Bansum, the largest cryptocurrency exchange in Korea. Simultaneous screams and shouts erupted from the people's mouths. "What? Is it a scam? You said you would be listed on Bansum soon. Is it all a lie? Is this all a scam?" Some of them collapsed, fainting, or collapsed to the floor. Choi Namwoo panicked and took Ban Ju-won's microphone. "Well, that's not it. Well, there seems to be some misunderstanding. What is a misunderstanding? Take my money, you swindler. Someone rushed in first, and the others rushed towards the podium at once. Where did my money go? Gee, calm down. There was no way to calm down with those words. Give me my money now. What kind of money is that? Is it false to say that Kang Jin-hoo is a relative? 1L. He tried to step back, but several people had already grabbed him. The large man grabbed Choi Nam-woo by the neck and shook it. Where's my money, you bastard? Speak quickly before I kill you. Kek. Saw live. Choi Nam-woo felt the fear that he might be killed on the spot. Fortunately, at that moment the door to the hall opened violently and the police rushed in. Behind them were reporters with cameras. Stop moving. Everyone get out of the way. The police rescued Choi Nam-woo, who was surrounded by members, and then handcuffed his hands. The prosecutor, wearing a black suit, walked over and opened the paper in front of Ham Suk-hoon. Chairman Sunpyo Ham of Child Group. No, you are Ham Suk-hoon, right? It's an arrest warrant. Please kindly cooperate. Young. His hands were also handcuffed. Choi Nam-woo shouted at Ham Suk-hoon. President. What is this? Isn't this a scam? Please say something, President. Unlike Choi Nam-woo, who was embarrassed and did not know what to do, Ham Suk-hoon had a calm expression. He clicked inwardly. Read more at wuxiax.com. I didn't come to this place. It wasn't entirely unexpected to be caught in this way, so I thought of every hole to get out of. Anyway, all the sins will be borne by Nam-woo Choi, who directly raised the investment. Most of the money Nam-woo Choi raised in Korea was transferred to Singapore. It may be possible to immediately stop withdrawals of money remaining in a domestic bank account, but an overseas account is not. It will track the flow of funds and request the country to freeze the account, but by that time, it will be transferred to a borrowed name account and a secret account. If you have that money, you can get out of probation by using the full-service lawyers well, and even if you live for a few years unlucky, your retirement is guaranteed for the rest of your life. Isn't Korea very tolerant of financial crime? Thinking so, Taekyu said to him. Aren't you relieved that you blamed Choi Nam-woo and stole all your money abroad? As you will know if you go to the prosecution and hear about it, Venezuela's state-owned oil fields are fraudulent, and all that investment money was stolen. It won't be easy to get out of here. And by now, a warrant has been issued to Golden Gate, and all those accounts are frozen, so you won't be able to save a single penny. At those words, Ham Suk-hoon's face became contemplative. When they have money, they are financial criminals and thieves. Without money, they are just scammers and dog thieves. Hey, how? Then why did you use the Golden Gate account? My money earned through hard work. Even scammers have valuable money. Ham Suk-hoon looked at Taekyu and shouted. What the fuck are you doing? What are you ruining someone else's business? Taekyu blinked his eyes as if he didn't understand English. No, the president said earlier that you should focus on what makes you really happy. I was just dedicated to doing this because it makes me happy. What did I do wrong? It's very embarrassing. Taekyu kept talking to Ham Suk-hoon, who couldn't say anything because he was absurd. By the way, my favorite Korean proverb is insul fucking. What? Life is practice. It means fuck you. Sparks flew out of Ham Suk-hoon's eyes. You bastard. He tried to run to Taekyu, but he couldn't move because his arms were being held by the police. The police took Ham Suk-hoon and Choi Nam-woo in turn. Choi Nam-woo shouted as he was dragged. Leave this. My brother-in-law is Jin-hoo Kang. Do you not know OTK company Kang Jin-hoo? Ting asked him. You're the brother-in-law who said he made that money and then lost all his money? What? The moment he heard those words, a memory from the past flashed in his mind. You must be in front of the house. I'll give my regards to the CO brother-in-law. The inside of the hall was a complete mess. People standing blankly, screaming for money, people lying on the floor crying loudly, etc. Is this really all a scam? Min Ha-young looked at her high school classmate with her confused eyes. Taekyu then shrugged his shoulders. If I had invested without knowing it, it would have been a disaster. M-Pizza opened at the Salon Hotel Jeju. It is the 7th directly managed store and the first in Jeju Island. President Lim Soo-mi was confident that Jeju Island would be able to attract Asian tourists as it is the center of Korean tourism. As if to prove the high popularity of M-Pizza, people lined up in a long line even before the opening ceremony, and many of them were foreigners. I attended the opening ceremony with President Lim Soo-mi and cut the tape. With that, the official schedule on Jeju Island was over, and from now on it was a vacation. She took her mother for a few days and toured around Songsan Ilchulbong, Seopji Koji and Gyeongjian Falls, and went out to sea with Ellie once every day. Ellie raised her thumb. She means to go up. We slowly climbed to the surface. When my face came out of the water, I took the hose out of my mouth and inhaled. Instead of dry air without moisture, fresh air entered the body. We climbed the ladder behind the yacht. When I got out of the water, the equipment I was carrying felt very heavy. I unpacked my gear and took a breath. I'm good now. Can I get an open water license? I thought I didn't like scuba diving very much, but it's actually fun to do. Also, it seems that people should have various experiences. You have to try it yourself to know if you like it or not. Ellie squinted her eyes. You did well, didn't you? Next time try skydiving together. Huh. You're not talking about jumping out of the sky with a parachute, are you? If you try Jinhoo, you will definitely like it. No, I really don't think you should try that. Ellie handed her a drink of water. I looked around. The sun was warm and the blue sea spread out in all directions. We are on a yacht. Since it was a luxury yacht, there was a separate bedroom as well as a shower room inside. Since the wheelhouse is separate, privacy is completely guaranteed. Ellie turned her back and said, "Take this down." I zipped the back of her back and Ellie took off her diving suit. Inside her, she was wearing a black bikini. Her pure white skin and the dizzying lines that were well developed through exercise were revealed. Her abs were showing through her bare stomach, and her arms and legs that were outstretched were also full of health. Ellie ran her fingers through her wet hair. It was like looking at her bikini pictorial. I'm glad this isn't the beach. Why? Won't all the men look at you? Do you hate seeing other men? I said frankly. I want to see it alone. Eli asked playfully, kissing her. Then shall I take this off too? Without realizing that, I swallowed her saliva. Are you here? If Jinhoo wants it, he can. I'm glad you came to play too. We returned to the hotel. Accommodation is Jeju Salon Hotel Presidential Suite. After taking a shower, Ellie put on her robe and went out. It shone even though it was raw without anything applied. She's the face I see all the time, but she's really pretty. As I was about to hug her, Ellie said, "No. You were going to have dinner with your mother later. You still have an hour left." Really? Jinhoo only thinks of that, right? What? Aren't all guys in their 20s like that? I said it as an excuse. Oh no. It's because Ellie is so pretty. Then Ellie poked her lips out a little. Shit. Lie. It's real. She is about to kiss, but suddenly Ellie's eyes swell greatly. Come on, wait a minute. What's wrong? Are you upset that you were just trying to do this? Ellie pointed her finger in front of her. Hey, look at that. I turned her head in surprise. At the bottom of the news screen, there was a caption that read, "After the earthquake, illegal multi-level raids involving her relatives." What the hell is that? I was surprised and turned up the sound with the remote control. The reporter said, "They say that the cryptocurrency craze has subsided, but the scams related to coins continue. Recently, there has been a fraud case that combines coins, multi-level, and even Venezuelan oil fields. It is known that Nam Choi, the CEO of JG Blockchain, recruited investors by claiming that he is a relative of Jinhoo Kong." Who is Choi Namu? Just then, a man in handcuffs appeared on the screen. Somehow it looks familiar. That person. He is the husband of his cousin, Kong Mi-young. It was the first and last time I saw him briefly at Dongtan's house when his relatives flocked to him. As the reporter's questions poured in, Choi Nam-woo, who was handcuffed, said as if he was unfair, "This is not a scam. Gile Gold Coin is the cutting-edge technology of the fourth industrial revolution that will open up a new future. And it is a new concept blockchain that is linked with Venezuela's petrocoin, dollar, and oil price." Then came the situation at the time. While doing something like an event at the hotel, the police raided and multi-level gangs were arrested one after another. Ellie pointed to one side of the screen. Isn't that Take You? Huh. There stood a man in jeans, a hoodie, and a baseball cap. He looks like Take You. Why are you there? The reporter continued. The prosecution thanked OTK Company for providing conclusive evidence in resolving this case. On the other hand, OTK Company has warned that under no circumstances will it solicit investment funds from individuals, and all raising funds under the name of Jinhu Kong is a fraud. The screen changed and On Song-nam, chief prosecutor of the Seoul District Prosecutor's Office, appeared. Prosecutors rushed the multi-level gang with a swift and thorough investigation. In addition, we plan to expand the investigation considering that there will be more damage. Above all, we succeeded in suspending the deposits and withdrawals of domestic accounts used for fraud and overseas accounts in Singapore to recover the damage, and we plan to recover the amount of damage as soon as possible. In the future, our prosecution will continue to pursue and punish various financial crimes and crimes against people's livelihood as a public prosecutor. I immediately called Taekyu. I just saw the news. What is this? Why are you here? There is nothing to worry about, so take a rest. Because I've taken care of everything. Huh. What the hell did you do? Tracking PD's broadcast went out, and the news also reported extensively every day. As the name of Kong Jinhu was related, public interest was great. It took first place in real swords on various portal sites and internet articles poured in. A small camera was installed inside the baseball cap that Taekyu received from Cha Ki-jun, a PD of Tracking PD. Thanks to this, all the arrest scenes were recorded. Prosecutors arrested Hem Suk-hoon and Choi Nam-woo and raided centers scattered across the country. There have been many instances of multi-level fraudsters being caught, but this is the first time they have caught on so quickly. Prosecutor On Song-nam personally came forward and briefed several times on what he could do to his subordinates. Fortunately, there were few criticisms of the fearful Jinhu Kong and her OTK company. That's because this case was almost as if the OTK company had solved it. Prosecutor On Song-nam also said that thanks to the OTK company's conclusive evidence and active cooperation, he was able to catch the scammers. Hey, OTK company did another thing. Ha 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 ha. I thought there was going to be someone like that. If it's your cousin's husband, you're not very close. There are many such people among celebrities' families and relatives. Not long ago, the father of the girl group Enter Girls Young was arrested for selling her daughter's name for 20 billion won. Are there so many huku in this country? Who the hell are you being deceived by something like that? How ignorant can you believe in such a thing? That bastard is a bitch. TTI went to the military and bought a garbage coin worth 5.04 million won. I'm going to the police station tomorrow for a victim investigation. I'm sorry. I didn't offend you, did I? No. I am the one who suffered. Anyway, I'm worried about paying off the loan. Still, you can get half of it back. Investors must have believed in the name of Jinhu Kong, but shouldn't Jinhu Kong be morally compensated? Right. Jinhu Kong has a lot of money. What kind of bullshit is this? So if I sell your name to scam you, will you pay me back? Ronald should pay compensation to those who scammed me by selling Ronald's name last time. If you are saving someone from drowning, give them a bag. If it wasn't for OTK company, the number of victims would increase and the money would not have been recovered. Anyway, you can do it. A few days later, Taekyu sat at the cafe and waited for Min Ha-young. There were several inaccuracies in the complaint he submitted. I expected hundreds of victims and tens of billions of dollars in damages, but when I opened the lid, the number of victims exceeded 1,000, not hundreds, and the amount of damage easily exceeded 100 billion. Taekyu thought as he opened the bag and chewed the Malin cow. I thought there were so many black cow brothers and sisters in this small land. At least it was caught early and stopped at this level, and if it had been a few more months, the damage would have been several times that. People were surprised when the investigative agency secured the list and contacted the victims one by one to explain them. However, some people responded that they couldn't believe it until the end, and some people thought it was voice phishing and got angry and hung up the phone or cursed. Of course, he later saw the news and ran straight to the police station. Well, so there are a lot of scammers, right? If you buy medical equipment, rent it to the hospital and get 10% a month? If you use it for only 9 months, you have more than to pay for the device, so why not rent a hospital instead of buying it? If you invest in a mother pig, you will raise and sell the piglets and give them 60% a year? The profit margin of the pig industry is higher than that of Samsung Electronics. If this is true, shouldn't Samsung Electronics shut down the semiconductor business and start the pig farming business? The sunken Russian warship has 150 trillion gold ingots, so you're going to salvage them? Is it common sense for a ship going to battle to carry a lot of gold bars? And if Russia had had that much money in the first place, there would have been no truce with Japan. There are plenty of other plausible stories out there. And there are some really good opportunities among them. But such opportunities are taken by people who already have money and connections and never come to ordinary people. A good opportunity for me to hear is the same when others hear it. It is not because we are foolish that we are deceived by such things, but because of fear and desire. The fear that there is no chance if it is not now and the desire to make quick money. Scammers take advantage of people's weaknesses. The interesting fact is that Ham Suk-hoon also went there. Blinded by the money of 5 billion, he appeared on his own, so the scammer was deceived. Read more at wuxiax.com. After a while, Min Ha-young entered the cafe. I put my glasses on again. At Taekyu's words, she smiled bitterly. Actually, it was very uncomfortable because my eyes were dry. Then why are you wearing lenses? The company taught me that dressing up as pretty as possible is advantageous for downline recruitment. It didn't seem like it would fit. So she wore fancy clothes even if she couldn't wash it on time, and she borrowed even a fake luxury bag and went out. Taeyong nodded his head. It looks a lot better now. Even though everyone pretended to be her success, most of them were actually hard to earn even 1 million won a month. There were some who even made so much money and bought coins again. All of them made a living by various side jobs and 2 jobs. During the day I wore a suit and went to work at the center, and after that I worked a part-time job at a convenience store. Nevertheless, it was able to survive because there was a belief that the jackpot would explode if Gile Gold coin was listed. People around me said it wasn't, and I sometimes had doubts, but since I had already put money in, I had no choice but to believe. Because if it's not true, everything is in vain. Fortunately, about half of the damage amount can be recovered. It will take several months. In most of these cases, the amount of damage is not recoverable. Even being able to recover half of it is close to a miracle. How do I get into debt? I told my parents first. I'd like to repay the loan somehow. I have to work and pay the rest. Are you going to keep drawing manga? Min Ha-young nodded her head. Let's try again from now on. I don't know where to start. I thought about it. Taekyu held out a business card. Then call me this way. What is this? Lost Fantasy M is a Korean publishing company, and they say they are looking for someone who will draw a webtoon as a game story. If you contact me through my introduction, you will know. The name and title of OTK Games Korea representative were written on the business card. How the hell do you know such a tall person? Come to think of it. It was Taekyu who brought Ham Suk-hoon to the spot that day and called Bansamam president. Maybe the police and journalists too. Did he do all that? Min Ha-young asked in a trembling voice. What are you doing? I'm not doing anything. Then how? Taeyong smiled and said. I just met my sister and friends well. After returning from a short vacation, I heard a story about how Taekyu cleared the dungeon of multi-level. As I listened to the story, I remembered my relatives who had come to Dongtan's house and insisted on giving me something. After that, I thought I was living a normal life because I was quiet, so I guess I was doing a multi-level thing. But there is something more curious than this case. So what happened with that girl? Min Ha-young. You loved it when you were in high school. Taekyu said with his arms crossed. That was a thing of the past. Now we are just classmates. Are you really not interested, or are you pretending not to care? The media continued to report on the scam. The prosecution immediately requested an arrest warrant, and of course Ham Suk-hoon and Choi Nam-woo were arrested. Ham Suk-hoon did his best to hand over all responsibility to Choi Nam-woo, and when he found out about his full story, he claimed that he had been deceived, but it was not accepted. The fraud case that made the Republic of Korea so noisy seemed to be coming to an end, but another problem remained for me. That is when her relatives, including her cousin Kang Mi-young, began to come to her mother again to ask for help. Naturally, he refused to even meet him, but he continued to come regardless. Even the feelings that I didn't know how to be bothered began to fall. Most of all, what the hell are you going to say to me when Nam-woo Choi was arrested? I'm not suing and I'm not judging. Do you really want me to take out my own money and pay compensation to the victims? Relatives aren't the only problem. It was already known here and there that her mother lived in a house in Dongtan. It's because there are local residents I've known for a long time, and in the past the parents' union had been active, in front of the house for a while. People in need of money and various charities came in line. She said that as far as her mother goes, it's her son's property and she has no authority on her own, but she's mostly reckless. She does good things, as the underdogma says, and being underdog doesn't necessarily mean being good. There were people who chased after her to the level of stalking to make a donation, and there were people who lied down in front of the house saying that she could not return until she gave her money. If they keep asking for money and they are rejected, people are killed and the environment is being destroyed, but they are accusing them of pretending not to know. Anyone who hears would think it's my mother's fault that children starve in Africa and whales die in the sea. Take You asked curiously. You mean Grandpa Warren Boat continues to live in the little house he bought a long time ago? Isn't there anything like that? Yeah. Still, Warren Boat lives in a small town. If you lived in a big city like LA or New York, wouldn't it be impossible? In fact, all places where people live are the same, so relatives and friends that you didn't even know existed at the moment of success are popping up all over the place. In the United States, according to state law, the face and real name of the lottery winners are disclosed in order to show fairness and transparency by disclosing the real winners, but it is more like a ploy to increase sales. I went down to Dongtan with Take You and persuaded her mother. Even though there are many memories in this house, wouldn't it be better to just stop moving now? It is enough to not allow entry into the building at all, and the house in Samsungdong where I live is also very secure. However, as this house was built as a general house, it is not suitable for security. So I bought the houses next to and behind and used it as a security building, but that has its limitations. If there were no bodyguards, problems would have arisen sooner. Or just for a while stay somewhere else. I leave this house to the caretaker. Her mother, who had been contemplating her for a long time, nodded her head. Hey. Still, it was inconvenient to go to a nearby mart once people came to visit. I'd love to do that. You thought well. He decided to slowly find a place to live and moved to the Salon Hotel in Namsan just like the last time. When I asked her mother to take care of her, President Lim Sumi had a meal together and she said that she had someone to exercise and she liked it. The electric vehicle industrial complex plan has progressed steadily. Seosung Electronics is the world's largest IT hardware manufacturer. And Unsung Motors is an automobile company with an annual production capacity of over 9 million units. If OTK companies' capital and technology are combined here, it can truly lead the future car field. The location of the industrial complex was decided in Gunsan in Korea and Vietnam and overseas. The Vietnamese government even set up a dedicated department to expedite all administrative procedures. On the contrary, the situation in Korea was sluggish. GM Korea announced that it would sell as soon as possible even when it closed its Gunsan plant on the pretext of worsening profitability, but when we said we would buy it, we could resume production later. With the utilization rate of existing factories below 70%, that is not possible. It's about trying to get a little extra. However, we also had no regrets, so we said that if we do not proceed with the sale process within the set period, we will move the industrial complex to another location. Then Gunsan City and the Korea Development Bank actively arbitrated. Chairman Im Jin-yong said. According to our Economic Research Institute's judgment, it is possible to double the sales forecast from the current level. The electric vehicle plant in the US and the battery plant of TS Company are also near completion and are about to be produced, and Seosung SB has started mass production of OTK batteries by changing the production line. In addition to investment in industrial complexes, Unsung Motors hastily converted domestic and overseas factories with reduced production to electric car factories. Now that the production facilities are sufficiently equipped, all you need to do is make and sell them. Taeying smiled and said, the only thing left to do is make money. Beijing, China. President Zhang Pinghua, who returned from talks with African leaders, received a report from Li Suwei, head of the Commerce Department. It was about the electric vehicle industrial complex promoted by OTK Company. How threatening do you think this will be? In terms of autonomous driving and battery technology, we are far ahead of our companies. If we don't act quickly, it will be a huge threat. Automobiles are employment-intensive and technology-intensive at the same time. And, of course, industrially and militarily, it is nothing less than a necessity. Currently, the US, Germany, Japan, and Korea are leading the automobile market. China has also spared no investment in automobiles since reform and opening up, but it only sold a lot in the domestic market and barely showed off in foreign countries. China has nurtured the self-driving electric vehicle and battery industry by pouring massive subsidies from the government. But once again the United States fell behind. The biggest reason is OTK Company. OTK Company has secured two core technologies for future cars: autonomous driving and batteries by acquiring Keras and releasing OTK batteries. Scholars from Peking University and Tsinghua University could not hide their surprise when they obtained and tested OTK batteries. The game was almost over when the capacity was doubled and stability was secured. As a result, LFP and NCM and existing batteries are all meaningless. Efforts in the past have been completely in vain. President Zhang Pinghua said, muttering. Even if it lags behind in the existing automobile industry, China must take the lead in the future car sector. Don't you know what happened when China fell behind? Of course. Until the Qing dynasty, China was a huge empire and the most powerful country in the world. However, while the Western powers grew rapidly after the Industrial Revolution, China fell behind the world. After that, there was a series of declines. Opium Wars, Japanese invasions, civil wars, etc. Eventually, the Communist Party won the Civil War and overthrew Japan, and the People's Republic of China was founded, but the Great Leap Forward movement and the Cultural Revolution failed, and the country was again in crisis. It was in the second half of the 20th century that China appeared in the world again. Since Deng Xiaoping's reform and opening up, China has absorbed the world's capital and technology at a tremendous rate. Meanwhile, in 2008, the U.S. financial crisis broke out. Real estate in almost all countries plummeted, and financial institutions went bankrupt one after another. At a time when the world was in chaos, China came as a relief pitcher. While the United States was faltering, China continued to achieve high growth and led the world economy. And suddenly Japan and Russia were overtaken and G2 stood tall. But it was just this far. The hegemony of the world was still with the United States. At one time, many experts predicted that China would overtake the United States in 10 years. Even right after the financial crisis, there were not a few economists who made such a claim. However, while the United States emerged from the shock of the financial crisis and shook hegemony again, China's growth rate was gradually slowing down. The Baoba policy that protects the economic growth rate of 8%, which was represented by China's economic policy, has long since been abandoned, and now it is difficult to guarantee 7% growth. In the meantime, China has spared no expense in investing in its own companies and technology development to catch up with the United States. Thanks to that, it succeeded in catching up with most manufacturing industries, but the technology gap between IT and high-tech industries widened even more. It was difficult to reverse this gap without special events such as natural disasters. But to my surprise, the natural disaster really happened. That's big one. Finance and industry are the two axes of the economy. If New York's Wall Street is the center of American finance, Silicon Valley is the cradle of American high-tech industries. Read more at wuxiax.com. Big One completely devastated Silicon Valley. However, most of the people who worked there survived, and the companies there were also fine except for the loss of their buildings. And they moved and created Silicon Valley in another place. President Zhang Pinghua clicked his tongue inwardly. I wish they were all dead then. If it did, America's industrial competitiveness would have retreated 10 years. And the inside of America must have been engulfed in chaos. Taking advantage of that opportunity, there is a great chance that China will rise again as a global leader. However, Big One only confirmed once again why the United States is the most powerful country in the world. Even if it wasn't for Kong Jin who? If you think about it, China was not the only one who suffered a loss from the earthquake. Before the Big One occurred, OTK Company purchased huge amounts of steel, copper and cement from Chinese companies at fixed prices. But after Big One, raw material prices soared. In particular, steel and copper prices more than doubled. Iron ore and mineral prices soared, and Chinese companies suffered huge losses rather than profits. However, the contract could not be broken. This is because Kong Jin who handed over all the supplies to the United States. Unless the other party is a single company, it is impossible to break the contract with the U.S. government. Even though the price was adjusted to a level that managed to avoid a loss by assessing that it could go bankrupt at this rate, it was a missed opportunity for companies to make big profits. Zhang Pinghua stock looked out the window. As always, the Beijing sky was gray. Due to the fine dust, the building on the opposite side was not clearly visible. Can't we attract OTK Company to China? Li Sui said. We will contact you from the Zhoucha side. The country that produces and sells the largest number of electric vehicles in the world is China, not the United States. The country where yen phones are sold the most is also China, not the United States. No company will be able to abandon the huge market of China. I had an unexpected guest at work. He was a middle-aged man in his early 50s. His characteristic was that he was very short in stature. He looked less than 160 centimeters even though he was wearing heels. Although he was small in stature, the wrinkles on his face showed the skill he had experienced before and after childbirth. He took my hand and spoke in hard English. "Nice to meet you, CEO Kong Jinhu. This is Wang Yichong, Vice Chairman of Zhou Motors." Zhou T is the largest automobile group in China. It operates Zhou Toyota, a joint venture with Toyota, and owns 5 brands including Zhou T. Last year it sold 2.7 million units in China alone, ranking first among Chinese brands. As it is a Chinese domestic company, it is not well known in Korea, but in China, it is virtually no different than a national car. Zhou T used the huge capital accumulated from domestic sales to swallow up foreign companies. The most famous example is the acquisition of Volvo Cars, which recently acquired a 10% stake in Daimler AG Benz. Here is not the end. It is still actively conducting various M&As, such as investing in ride-sharing, car-sharing and artificial intelligence startups in Hong Kong, the United States and the United Kingdom, and acquiring London Taxi Company. It is an open secret that a small company that made scooters just 20 years ago was able to grow so rapidly in a short period of time with the support of the Chinese government. Well, as automobiles are a key industry, it is natural for the government to support them. If the Korean government had left it alone, could Unsung Motors become a global company? But even taking that into account, the growth of Zhou T is astonishing. The shares are listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, with a current market capitalization of 350 billion Hong Kong dollars. When converted, it amounts to about 50 trillion won. The stock has risen more than 80% in the past year alone. I saw a short middle-aged man in front of me. He is Wang Yichong, Vice President of Zhou Cha. Chairman Zhou Kai does not leave Guangzhou, where his headquarters is located, and his external activities are mostly handled by Vice Chairman Wang Yichong. He joined after Zhou Cha started the automobile industry in earnest with the permission of the authorities, and has a history of serving as secretary of the Prince's Party in the past. He is known to be close with high-ranking leaders, including President Zhang Pinghua, as the Crown Prince Party currently holds the power of the CCP. Therefore, there were many people saying that Vice Chairman Wang Yichong was more powerful than Chairman Zhou Kai. Usually when such a big man visits Korea, an article will appear in advance. But somehow he quietly visited Korea with only a few attendants. It was the day before that I was asked to meet. I decided to meet him because I thought I should listen to what he was talking about. He wondered if he would ask Eli to interpret, but Vice Chairman Wang Yichong accompanied a Korean-Chinese entourage. Having announced his name as Ryu Ishin, he knew how to speak a clean Seoul language, not a Yinbian dialect. Seriously, it would be quite elite to serve as Vice Chairman Zhou Cha. Vice Chairman Wang Yichong greeted him and handed him a gift. I looked at it and saw that there was something like a big disc inside the box. It is a famous tea in Yunnan province. Oh, thank you. It is said that expensive Puyong cars cost tens of thousands of won each, and they come and go as bribes among politicians. Maybe it's not like that? After saying goodbye, we sat down in the conference room. Over there is Vice Chairman Wang Yichong and his interpreter secretary, and this is me and Taekyu. Vice Chairman Wang Yichong spoke his simple words in English, but he communicated his doctor mainly through an interpreter. Anyway, there was no problem with communication. After a few compliments over coffee and tea, he brought up the subject. I know that Karis will launch an electric car within this year. Although Karis has only released 2 types of cars, it is considered to be the most advanced in the self-driving car competition. Perhaps because of that, the attention of the world has been focused on the electric car to be launched by Karis. That's right. Eventually, the Communist Party won the Civil War and overthrew Japan, and the People's Republic of China was founded, but the Great Leap Forward movement and the Cultural Revolution failed, and the country was again in crisis. It was in the second half of the 20th century that China appeared in the world again. Since Deng Xiaoping's reform and opening up, China has absorbed the world's capital and technology at a tremendous rate. Meanwhile, in 2008, the U.S. financial crisis broke out. Real estate in almost all countries plummeted, and financial institutions went bankrupt one after another. At a time when the world was in chaos, China came as a relief pitcher. While the United States was faltering, China continued to achieve high growth and led the world economy. And suddenly Japan and Russia were overtaken and G2 stood tall. But it was just this far. The hegemony of the world was still with the United States. At one time, many experts predicted that China would overtake the United States in 10 years. Even right after the financial crisis, there were not a few economists who made such a claim. However, while the United States emerged from the shock of the financial crisis and shook hegemony again, China's growth rate was gradually slowing down. The Baoba policy that protects the economic growth rate of 8%, which was represented by China's economic policy, has long since been abandoned, and now it is difficult to guarantee 7% growth. In the meantime, China has spared no expense in investing in its own companies and technology development to catch up with the United States. Thanks to that, it succeeded in catching up with most manufacturing industries, but the technology gap between IT and high-tech industries widened even more. It was difficult to reverse this gap without special events such as natural disasters. But to my surprise, the natural disaster really happened. That's big one. Finance and industry are the two axes of the economy. If New York's Wall Street is the center of American finance, Silicon Valley is the cradle of American high-tech industries. Read more at wuxiax.com. Big One completely devastated Silicon Valley. However, most of the people who worked there survived, and the companies there were also fine except for the loss of their buildings. And they moved and created Silicon Valley in another place. President Zhang Pinghua clicked his tongue inwardly. I wish they were all dead then. If it did, America's industrial competitiveness would have retreated 10 years. And the inside of America must have been engulfed in chaos. Taking advantage of that opportunity, there is a great chance that China will rise again as a global leader. However, Big One only confirmed once again why the United States is the most powerful country in the world. Even if it wasn't for Kang Jin-hu. If you think about it, China was not the only one who suffered a loss from the earthquake. Before the Big One occurred, OTK company purchased huge amounts of steel, copper and cement from Chinese companies at fixed prices. But after Big One, raw material prices soared. In particular, steel and copper prices more than doubled. Iron ore and mineral prices soared, and Chinese companies suffered huge losses rather than profits. However, the contract could not be broken. This is because Kang Jin-hu handed over all the supplies to the United States. Unless the other party is a single company, it is impossible to break the contract with the US government. Even though the price was adjusted to a level that managed to avoid a loss by assessing that it could go bankrupt at this rate, it was a missed opportunity for companies to make big profits. Zhang Pinghua stock looked out the window. As always, the Beijing sky was gray. Due to the fine dust, the building on the opposite side was not clearly visible. Can't we attract OTK company to China? Li Sui said. We will contact you from the Zhocha side. The country that produces and sells the largest number of electric vehicles in the world is China, not the United States. The country where yen phones are sold the most is also China, not the United States. No company will be able to abandon the huge market of China. I had an unexpected guest at work. He was a middle-aged man in his early 50s. His characteristic was that he was very short in stature. He looked less than 160 centimeters even though he was wearing heels. Although he was small in stature, the wrinkles on his face showed the skill he had experienced before and after childbirth. He took my hand and spoke in hard English. Nice to meet you, CEO Kang Jin-hu. This is Wang Yichong, Vice Chairman of Zhou Motors. Zhou T is the largest automobile group in China. It operates Zhou Toyota, a joint venture with Toyota, and owns 5 brands including Zhou T. Last year it sold 2.7 million units in China alone, ranking first among Chinese brands. As it is a Chinese domestic company, it is not well known in Korea, but in China, it is virtually no different than a national car. Zhou T used the huge capital accumulated from domestic sales to swallow up foreign companies. The most famous example is the acquisition of Volvo Cars, which recently acquired a 10% stake in Daimler AG Benz. Here is not the end. It is still actively conducting various M&As, such as investing in ride-sharing, car-sharing and artificial intelligence startups in Hong Kong, the United States and the United Kingdom and acquiring London Taxi Company. It is an open secret that a small company that made scooters just 20 years ago was able to grow so rapidly in a short period of time with the support of the Chinese government. Well, as automobiles are a key industry, it is natural for the government to support them. If the Korean government had left it alone, could Unsung Motors become a global company? But even taking that into account, the growth of ZOT is astonishing. The shares are listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, with a current market capitalization of 350 billion Hong Kong dollars. When converted, it amounts to about 50 trillion won. The stock has risen more than 80% in the past year alone. I saw a short middle-aged man in front of me. He is Wang Yichong, vice president of ZOCHA. Chairman Zhou Kai does not leave Guangzhou, where his headquarters is located, and his external activities are mostly handled by Vice Chairman Wang Yichong. He joined after Zhou Cha started the automobile industry in earnest with the permission of the authorities, and has a history of serving as secretary of the Prince's Party in the past. He is known to be close with high-ranking leaders, including President Zhang Pinghua, as the Crown Prince Party currently holds the power of the CCP. Therefore, there were many people saying that Vice Chairman Wang Yichong was more powerful than Chairman Zhou Kai. Usually when such a big man visits Korea, an article will appear in advance. But somehow he quietly visited Korea with only a few attendants. It was the day before that I was asked to meet. I decided to meet him because I thought I should listen to what he was talking about. He wondered if he would ask Eli to interpret, but Vice Chairman Wang Yichong accompanied a Korean-Chinese entourage. Having announced his name as Ryu Ishin, he knew how to speak a clean Seoul language, not a Yinbian dialect. Seriously, it would be quite elite to serve as Vice Chairman Zhou Cha. Vice Chairman Wang Yichong greeted him and handed him a gift. I looked at it and saw that there was something like a big disc inside the box. It is a famous tea in Yunnan province. Oh, thank you. It is said that expensive Puyong cars cost tens of thousands of won each, and they come and go as bribes among politicians. Maybe it's not like that? After saying goodbye, we sat down in the conference room. Over there is Vice Chairman Wang Yichong and his interpreter secretary, and this is me and Taekyu. Vice Chairman Wang Yichong spoke his simple words in English, but he communicated his doctor mainly through an interpreter. Anyway, there was no problem with communication. After a few compliments over coffee and tea, he brought up the subject. I know that Karis will launch an electric car within this year. Although Karis has only released 2 types of cars, it is considered to be the most advanced in the self-driving car competition. Perhaps because of that, the attention of the world has been focused on the electric car to be launched by Karis. That's right. As the CEO knows, for Karis to grow into a global company, it has to enter the Chinese market. China is a huge market that no company can give up on. China has already surpassed the US GDP. GDP includes both production and consumption. As it is the country with the largest population in the world, it is understandable in a way. So all global automakers are knocking on the door of the Chinese market. We pride ourselves on being the best partner for Karis and OTK Company. China's auto tariffs are 25%. This means that if you make a car in a foreign country and send it to the Chinese market, the price will be 25% higher, excluding logistics costs. Therefore, most automobile companies produce locally, and in this case, they must unconditionally form a joint venture with a local company. Currently in China, foreign ownership cannot exceed 50% by law. In the end, we have no choice but to cooperate with a local company 50-50 to cry and eat mustard. There are no problems in the beginning. However, after a certain period of time, problems start to occur when local companies acquire the technology and know-how of global companies. Local companies are slowly raising their voices and collide with investment and management. When decisions are made in a situation where they have the same stake, it is difficult to follow the will of either party. In addition, the Chinese court is on the side of the domestic company thoroughly when the problem becomes serious and a lawsuit must be filed with the court. Nikola is also exporting with high tariffs instead of local production due to the joint venture problem. Even so, people who will buy it, but in terms of price competitiveness, it is inevitable. China and Korea have been friendly for a long time, and this is still the case today. I think OTK Company and ZOCHA Group can do the same. Neighboring countries such as Korea and Japan, Thailand and Vietnam, England and Ireland, Turkey and Greece and France and Germany tend to have bad relations with each other. Compared to the above cases, relations between China and Korea are not so bad. Above all, China accounts for the largest share of Korea's exports. Vice Chairman Wang Yichang continued. The electric vehicle market in China has grown more than 50 times in the past 5 years, and now accounts for 40% of the global market share. In other words, 40 out of 100 electric vehicles are sold in China. Even taking into account the Chinese population, this is a high number. It was no different than a figure that showed how much the Chinese government cares about this. In fact, China is much more active than Korea in the spread of electric vehicles. Even automakers are compelled to sell a certain part of their sales as eco-friendly cars. It is already a thing of the past to ridicule people who said it was made in China. In particular, when it comes to electric vehicles, Korea has an edge in technology. In the case of BID, its technological prowess is recognized by exporting electric buses to the world, including Jeju Island. Zhou is also selling electric vehicles, and last year's sales were 120,000 units. Volvo, acquired by Zhou Motors, also announced plans to launch all of its cars as eco-friendly vehicles within the next 5 years. Looking at this, the Korean automobile market was nothing like the Galapagos. The biggest reason for this is, of course, the monopoly of Unsung Motors. There is no need to take on a new challenge in a market where money can be made even if the existing business is good. The Chinese government is sparing no support for the goal of distributing 10 million electric vehicles within 3 years. Guangdong province, where Zhou is located, also promised to do its best to support if Keris builds a factory jointly with Zhou. Seeing you say this, it seems that you have finished talking to some extent with the politicians. I don't even think about the person who will give me the rice cake, but did you drink kimchi soup first? I said carefully. There are many outstanding electric car makers in China. In comparison, we are not yet ready to enter China. We also want to be proactive in our business. That's why it remains a privately held company. Vice Chairman Wang Yichang nodded. I know what you are worried about. The authorities are reviewing a plan to allow up to 70% of foreign companies' shares in EV companies to foster the EV industry, and the law will be revised within this year at the earliest. Of course, China cannot simply change its policy. I understand that conditions such as technology transfer will follow. What are they aiming for? Autonomous driving technology or battery technology? Of course it will be both. I shook my head. I need to think about it. Vice Chairman Wang Yichang suggested several conditions. Free provision of factory site, guarantee of management rights, free provision of factory site, improvement of brand value, increase in sales volume, etc. What's even better is that the joint venture's investment will be loaned out at a near-zero interest rate. In short, they will lay the red carpet so you just have to come in. It's the best in terms of conditions. No automaker was able to enter the Chinese market under such generous conditions. But there's no free lunch in the world. No matter how much capital we have compared to the Chinese government, it is a new start. What is ahead is technology, but if that technology is taken away one day, that is the end of it. Persuasion continued, but I said that it was not yet the time to enter China. After almost half a day of persuasion, I did not give up, and Vice Chairman Wang Yichang's expression hardened. Eventually he got up. And he said something in a cold voice and Ryu Ishin translated it. According to the old saying, if a small country opposes a large country, it will lead to anger. Is it intimidating? Hearing this, I think it was a good thing to say no. I laughed out loud. Translate as it is. This is America, and if I were an American, would I be able to say that? In the end, Vice Chairman Wang Yichang returned to China empty-handed. Keris does not have a sales network in China and does not export, so what can he do there? But soon after we met, something happened. China mentioned the previous airbag recall, stating that Unsung Car's exhaust gas manipulation was suspected, and ordered to suspend sales for several car models until results are available. Yunsong, who had received a reservation in advance for a large-scale advertisement ahead of the launch of a new car in China, was embarrassed. In addition, Seosung Electronics home appliance factory in Qingdao, China, has been shut down for reasons such as firefighting inspections. Everyone reacted astonishingly to the sudden action of sanctions by the Chinese government. But even more frightening was the local reaction. Businesses and local governments who read the atmosphere of the Chinese government postponed or cancelled events related to Korea one after another. In short, All Korean products on the main screen of internet shopping malls disappeared to the back page, and articles about Korean celebrities, dramas and movies that were on the portal site also disappeared. Take you asked. Unsung Tea is said to be a joint venture with Beijing Tea in China? Then wouldn't Beijing cars also suffer damage? They have their own brand, but of course some losses cannot be avoided. In a normal country, companies would immediately sue the government. However, Chinese companies did not cling to government policy, even though it was clear that they would suffer a loss. This, too, can be said to be a peculiarity of the country of China. Read more at wuxiax.com. Since you can't touch us directly, are you touching the related companies first? Is this okay? If you have the power, you can do this. If South Korea had done a similar thing to Chinese companies operating in Korea, the Chinese government would immediately retaliate. However, the Korean government did not find a proper solution. This is the difference between a country with power and a country without power. I added a word. Still, you can't say that you have power. Which country would trust and follow a country that says it is more powerful than the other country and does whatever it wants? This is why China can't hear the sound of a great nation. Rather, if you give a reason and formally impose sanctions, you can protest or file a complaint with the WTO. However, there is no answer if you procrastinate on the review of measures. Various sanctions have had a negative impact on stock prices. Shares of Susong Electronics and Unsung Motors, which have been on an upward trend since the announcement of the Electric Vehicle Industrial Complex Plan, fell 3% and 5%, respectively, on the news that the Chinese government imposed sanctions. As a countermeasure, Chairman Im Jin-yong came to our building. Taeyong spoke again. By the way, OTK Company is an American company, and Carlos is an American company. So shouldn't we also retaliate against American companies? However, American companies are not even touching a single hair, and are venting their anger against Korean companies. Chairman Im Jin-yong said with a sad smile. Because then Ronald won't stand still. After all, are Koreans happy? Taekyu said it as if it was absurd. No, it's not like you're an asshole, you're strong against the weak and weak against the strong. What kind of country is this? The retaliation did not end there. I got a call from Yao Min, CEO of Tenway, a logistics truck brokerage service in China. The authorities have issued an order to suspend business. This was also true of other startups that OTK Company invested in China.